So today is quite a special day, and I've been waiting for this day for quite a while. Looking forward for it, and to be honest, the project that we will be unveiling today started in 2015. So Sönke showed one of the pictures of the distributors conference in 2015, and back then I gave a presentation about a project that then evolved into the passive Trackbox. And actually already in 2015, still in the old office, still with only, I don't know how many people were, 15 people maybe back then, we were thinking about our own reader. And that's a project which has been going on much longer than I thought it would. And COVID played a little bit of a role there. But also it's just, in German you say, it's a thick piece of wood to drill through. But who's here? Okay. Okay, so before we get started with the new product, we have to talk about our old product, because from today on it will be our old product. And the question is, why do most timing systems look like this? And actually Sönke already gave it away a little bit. When we designed this here, especially at the moment the case was chosen, actually we were 3 people. And in many cases, I would say that's how things start. You have to use something that's there. And you have to work with what you can get, and you cannot build what you would want to build. Okay. So most timing systems exist or consist of a computer, a reader, and a battery. And most of our competitors, including us, put a computer, a reader, and a battery inside a box and call it a timing system. And it's been like that for, I would say, 15 years now, if you consider UHF timing. Before that, we were actually at a state where some timing systems looked different, were not like this, which is interesting. But for the last 15 years, I would say most passive systems look like this. Now, building timing systems for over 10 years now, you learn a thing or two. And I know that many of you, for example, are not happy with the battery that we have in our system. I mean, please raise your hand if you are happy with the battery. Okay, there's one. So why is it that way? The thing is that 10 years ago, when we started building these timing systems, the battery was only meant to be a backup. Normally, you ran the timing system on AC power, or you had some form of power. But in the last 10 years, with 2G, 3G, 4G, and all the connectivity that we have now, people expect the timing system to run on battery for a race day. So the original design was never meant to be used the way you are using it today. And therefore, battery was not a big concern in the original design. And therefore, we basically used the best battery available that fit our needs. Also, we had to consider some shipping and traveling by airplane issues. But we were never happy with it, and the longer, or the more time went by, the less happy we were, and I guess all of you are. So you also learn a thing or two about your users. Because you could argue that a case that you buy from Explorer, in our case, which when the lid is closed is absolutely waterproof, there should not be water in the system at any given time, because if it rains, you can close it. The problem is that the expectation is that even if you don't close it, it doesn't break. And the expectation has grown a lot to what kind of designs we deliver, that even if you misuse it, or not use it the way we think it should be used, it should still be working okay. So, given the chance to build the next generation of timing systems, I was thinking, okay, what's wrong with timing systems right now? What is the basic flaw of the timing systems that you can buy on the market? And I'm saying this for UHF passive. And if you think about it, there are several things that we don't really like. So I already said something about the battery and the battery life, but also weight and size of the system is not perfect. I mean, please raise your hand if you're happy with weight and size of our decoder at the moment. Okay, there are some. Well, then the new system is not for you. The expectation has grown a lot there too in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, people were happy, no matter how much it weighed and how large it was. But the installations have been, I would say, more agile. You travel a lot more with the systems. You cover larger markets with your systems. Basically, you have more systems on the event than you had 10 years ago. So you still want to pack all the systems that you need for an event into one van or one car or whatever. So the expectations have grown there. So I said something about the battery life. I said something about the size and weight. So looking at the question of having a computer, a reader, and a battery, we said, okay, you still need a computer. You need a computer to process the data, the passing data. You need to store it in there. You do all the data communication, everything. So the computer still needs to be there. There's no question about that. And you still need a battery, because you need energy, and even more than 10 years ago, the battery is absolutely crucial. But you don't need a reader in the decoder. And this is the basic thought about the new system. And I have to go a little detour now before I unveil this and explain you of what we're doing here. So the Trackbox Passive was just a warm-up. The idea was that if we build our own passive reader, we don't want to build a timing system right from the start, because there is some expectation connected to our, attached to our timing systems, where you cannot go back from that. It has to be as good as the timing systems were before. And if we build our own reader for the first time, it's really tough to be as good as the existing readers out there. So we said, okay, if we do our own reader, we'll put in the passive Trackbox first, because it's used at non-critical timing locations, split times, not high density. This should be easier to do, and expectations is not so high. And this is why we came up with the passive Trackbox 3 years ago now, right? Yeah. And actually, the first passive Trackboxes that were sold were different from the passive Trackboxes that you buy now. We have improved quite a significant amount of details. It still looks the same, but we learned things in the last 3 years. And I think it was the right strategy to do the passive Trackbox first. But still, it was only a warm-up. Now, what I have with me here today is this thing. This is our new antenna, and there is a reader inside. It's the same hardware as in the passive Trackbox. Obviously, there's no 4G modem inside, and there's no battery inside, but the reader hardware is the same. And what we're doing here, you probably guessed it, we're putting one reader in every single antenna element. Okay? So you would ask yourself, okay, why is this beneficial? Why would you do that? Isn't that expensive? And I can say no, because this is our own reader. We don't have to pay a reader manufacturer for it. And we can produce 6 or 8 of them for less than what we pay for an existing reader if we buy one. Okay. So then you would ask yourself, what is the problem with a reader? Why is an existing reader that you can buy not perfect for this application? And if you look at the existing timing systems, there are basically 2 approaches. You have a 4-port reader or an 8-port reader. And the number of ports is already the problem. Because all of you know, we have 8-port readers. Some of our competitors have 2 4-port readers inside. But you have a limited number of ports on that device. And that limits the number of antennas you can connect to your timing device. And that limits the length of the mat that you can put on the floor. And if you put a reader in every single antenna, you get rid of that problem. You will see later of how many you can connect to our system, but it's a lot. So another problem with readers, off-the-shelf readers that you could buy, is they have 8 ports, but I guess some of you know, maybe some of you don't. They are not all operated continuously. It's actually only 1 port at a time, which is multiplexed through. So there's only 1 reader unit inside the reader that we buy, and that is switching through the 8 antenna ports. In the typical warehouse logistics situation, that's okay, because tags are not moving fast, and if you don't catch all the tags every time, it's not so important. But in our application, that's quite important. I mean, I always say nobody runs a marathon again just because it didn't capture him at the finish line. And the problem is that the UHF readers that you can buy for logistics applications are just not meant to be used for timekeeping. And the switching through the antenna ports means that if you run across the antenna as a single person, it's not really a big deal, because it's very likely that every single antenna will be switched on while you run over it. But if there are many tags in range of the reader has difficulties seeing every single chip, especially a start situation is a problem that cannot be fixed if there's only 1 antenna on at any given time. So with this, having a reader in every single mat, we can turn on multiple of these readers at the same time. Okay. Now you have to bear with me. It gets a little bit complex, and I think maybe I'll be moving fast, because you first have to digest the idea of having a reader in every single mat. But if you start with that, the question is, how do you actually implement it? So here you see a base model, 6 elements, 6 readers, and I'm going to describe how what our new mats will look like. So you can see here there is a connector on this side, and there's a connector on this side. So you could start and say, okay, current systems, 8 ports, 8 cables, 1 cable for each antenna. And we could do the same thing here. The antenna does not need an HF cable anymore. It needs a power supply and data communication. In our case, that's 4 pins that we need. But you could run a single cable to every single antenna. But actually, that's not what we wanted to do. Because when we reconfigure antennas, it's actually quite a pain, because you have to take out all the cabling to the spot where you want to reconfigure. So you have to open up all the elements to get all the cables out. And with this kind of technology, that's not important anymore. You don't need the single HF cable per antenna anymore. You can daisy chain them, putting 1 antenna element connected to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and you only have an antenna cable between 2 of the antennas. Okay, you still with me? Okay. So one of the problems if you do that is having 8 cables has one small benefit, If one of those cables breaks, you only lose one antenna. Okay? It doesn't happen often, but it can happen, especially if you have heavy equipment traveling across the antenna. Things can go wrong. A cable can break. So imagine you have one chain of antennas being connected, and that chain breaks. You lose all the antennas behind the breakage. That's not so good. And this is why we came up with a solution where we have two chains of antenna elements. And now it gets a little bit intricate, but I hope I can explain it so you understand it. So this is what a new floor mat will look like. You see two antenna elements, the rectangular red elements in the middle. And you see green cabling and yellow cabling. And you see the green cables coming from the left. And there's one green cable bypassing the left element beneath the element and going into the second antenna element. And there's a yellow cable coming from the right, bypassing the right element and going into the one on the left. So if you think this through, you understand that if you continue that, you have two chains. And if one of them breaks down, it's not really such a big issue. It still is an issue, but you may still have a nice end of your event day because you will still most likely capture most of your participants. Now, the problem is, how do you split this thing? Looks a little bit complicated. If you look closely, you see that in the center and on the far left and right, the plastics, this is transparent here right now, the plastics actually are not symmetrical. So on the far left and right, next to the antenna elements, you see what we call a parking position. And in the center, left and right, you see it's full plastics, basically. So let me explain. This is now non-transparent, taken apart. The end of your future floor mat with one element in it. And the blue cable is in the parking position. You still with me? Please raise your hand if you're not with me. Okay. Then I'll go faster now. So you have this blue cable in the parking position, and imagine you have a second coming from the other side with also this cable in the parking position. You connect the hinges. I mean, it's still a foldable mat, that's for sure. So you connect the hinges, and you put that blue cable into the next, and let's say a green cable that comes from the other side into this element. What you have now done is you connected two facing elements with just opening up those two. You don't need to open up the next one. So you only need to open up two elements to connect elements or split them again. And you always have all the cables you need because they're already in there. You don't need to bring any cabling. Okay? So this is the concept for our new floor mat antenna. Talk about sizes. It's unfortunately not really good to see, but we increased the length of one plastic segment slightly, so that now we are at about 2.5 foot or something like 77 centimeters. Just perfect, so that when it's packed up, it fits on a pallet. Now, that's the important part here. The standard antenna will be 6 elements. We think we can get away with 6 elements having the same performance as our old antenna, with slightly further apart antennas. because we can switch on more antennas at the same time. Of course, those antennas will be synchronized to each other, so they don't interfere. You will be able to buy extension sets of 2 segments. So it's always 2 segments. Maybe if you remember, you have this middle section without parking locations. You should not split them there. It will be a mess. But actually on the plastic it says split here every second mat. And you can expect about a 20% weight reduction at the same length compared to the old one. And now the important thing is you will be able to connect up to 30 segments to our new timing system. That gives you about 23 meters maximum length. There's an important thing here, 23 meters packed together weigh 107 kilograms. That's about 220 pounds. So you will want to split them. So where are we with this right now? Obviously, I don't have any plastics with me here right today. The reason for that actually is that with our new form factor of being slightly longer, there is no 3D manufacturing company in Germany at the moment who can do 3D prototypes for us in this form factor. So I have smaller parts of it in the office, but I didn't want to bring them. At the moment, the state is that we are quite soon we will be doing the tooling for the plastics. And that's for the plastics. For the electronics, actually interesting part here, this is a picture taken 2 weeks ago in our office with Jonathan and Martin working on the elements. And we have a working prototype. So this is detecting. This is 4 elements in a row actually connected to each other in the old plastics. And as I said, the actual reader inside is the same as in the passive track box. And we know what we're doing there. Basically, the reader is not the issue. What we're working on here right now is how does everything come together, getting the data through, getting synchronization done, and finding out how to actually utilize this hardware to get the best effect or best read rates at the end. So what we're planning is to do lots of testing this summer, and we are planning to have this in the shop late 2023. Question is, why do I show it to you today? Obviously, you need all this detour. This, what we just did was just the detour to come to this here, because you need to understand why this thing here looks the way it looks. With the announcement now of a product which is basically still, I would say, at least 9 months to go, what we're doing is we're giving you a heads up, which may be important for your decisions this year, depending on where you want to invest in our products, invest in competitors' products. This is why we're doing this today. And I think if we would bring out this product in fall and we would not have talked about it today, you would be pretty frustrated. So this was the new floor mat antenna. Now let's talk about Ubidium. Ubidium is the name of our next generation timing system. And this is what it looks like. So we were saying that the old housing, yeah, you can post it on Facebook right away, see who's answering on Timer's talk. So the old housing has been the same for almost 14, 15 years now. And Sönke already said it in his presentation. we now have the volume. We sell several thousand of those boxes here to do our custom injection molded housings, specifically designed for the purpose. I would say this is the most important part about the new system, that this is a system designed for timekeeping. That's our internal product name was Next Generation Timing System. We call it Ubidium, and we think we can revolutionize the timing world with it. Let me show you a little bit of what it can do. I'll have to look for the live stream. Yeah. You good? So we were talking about, what should be changed and what's not so great about our current system. This new decoder has about a third of the size if you take off the bumpers. You can come up front later and compare yourself. And more importantly, a third of the weight. So I don't know if I could, or how long I could do this with the old system. It would be exhausting. So you can already see that the display is showing something, but the system is off. So the system here right now shows you battery capacity of 2 batteries. It shows you a name. Basically here it says 10K finish main. And it just stays like that even if it's off. Important thing here is that as it's all custom built, also the display is custom built for us. We can do that because power consumption is really low. And we think it has significant benefits to be able to show stuff on the screen even if the system is off. Now, every person I talked to so far, and I showed this concept so far, told me this is not going to work. Because where is the lid? Okay. Now, the problem is that if you look at the failures that we get for repair systems, if you look at what happened to those systems, in 90% of the cases where we have water damage, the problem was that the lid was not closed and it started to rain. Yeah? And I can understand that this happens. I mean, if Mark forgot to change from start to finish on his first event, I can understand that sudden rain showers can be surprising, especially if you have untrained helpers at remote locations. This can catch you unprepared. So when we designed, or when we thought about the first iterations of the design, we had iterations, or we tried different approaches of doing a lid and getting this fixed. And in the end, we decided, how about getting rid of the lid completely, not covering the user interface? Because what you ultimately want is you want to be able to see the user interface and you touch the buttons even if it rains. It sometimes rains. So we said, OK, let's do this differently and have a waterproof and very robust user interface. This is a custom-made glass. You can drop a steel ball out of more than a meter's height on it, and it doesn't shatter. And a custom keypad, which you can basically throw a hammer on, make it robust so it doesn't break. Then you don't need a lid anymore. Also, it has a huge benefit that if it's somewhere on the ground, you can just walk up to it. You will see the display later. Everything is large enough that you can see everything important just standing in front of it. You don't have to open the lid and then nothing. So you see this picture here. Obviously, we tested this a lot. And we are quite sure, I mean, you can never rule it out completely, but we are quite sure that we will have less water damages in the future than we had before. Now, you want some connectors because you want to connect things. So this thing still has a lid. This is the lid, and there are some connectors below that. And the interesting fact about this thing here is you cannot leave it open. There is no way to leave this open. It just falls back again and again and again. Okay. There is a brush here, and we'll go into details tomorrow. There will be a technical presentation tomorrow with Moritz, where we actually take the full system apart so you can see what's inside. And you will see all connectors populated and the lid's still closed, because we have this brush here, which allows cables to go through. And you cannot put a cable in there where water dripping along or running along the cable goes into the system. It's just not possible anymore. Because the lid, there are strong magnets below here, the lid pulls down your cables, so you will not have water running along your cable. So talking about connectors, you can see we have actually quite a lot. And I don't want to go into every technical detail here because we will have another presentation tomorrow, but I will give you a brief overview. So we still have a 4G. We don't have 5G yet. I guess there will be 5G upgrade, I don't know, in the next years, but right now it's 4G. Important thing is we have two SIM cards. There is an external SIM card slot, which is here, where you can put in your SIM card. And there's also a race result internal SIM card, which can be used if you want. So if you get a data plan from us, you can use the internal, you can put in your external, and the system can be configured to automatically switch SIM cards should there ever be a network problem. Then we have 3 network ports, of which one is a PoE in, power over Ethernet, meaning you can power this thing with a network cable. And I have a PoE injector here. Oh, let's clean up this mess here. So with something like this here, you can power it. And we have 2 PoE outs. One supplying power when the device is powered itself. And yes, you can charge one Ubidium with the next. And the other one supplying power over PoE from the internal batteries. So you can run your Ubiquiti nanostation or whatever you have, which runs from PoE with the batteries inside the system. We have USB-A, so your normal thumb drive connector, but we also have USB-C. And the USB-C allows to connect, for example, this kind of charger here, which I use for my phone and my computer, to charge the device, which makes international traveling a lot more easier. Because basically you could travel with one timing system, computer, and phone, and only have one of these. There is Wi-Fi inside, and it can run in a client mode connecting to an existing network, or it can run as an access point, and I will show you that in a minute. It has a trigger in and out, so you can directly connect light barriers, but you will also be able to trigger other systems or other equipment with it. And we have DC in, out, and can support solar panels directly connected to it. So, question, I don't know if you believe me, if this thing is waterproof. And I would say I'm pretty sure that this thing is waterproof. And it takes a little bit, but I will just wait. Unfortunately, the contrast is not really high here on this screen today, but there is no water drop inside. So let's talk about the back side. Let's turn this around. So we have 2 connectors here to connect a loop cable. So it connects to the loop you know from our active system. And so what you may already guessed, yes, this is an active system. As we put the reader into the mat, we don't have to sell readers to everyone anymore. At the moment, or I don't know if you have ever, as an active timer, carried around the case and wondered why am I carrying around a passive reader all the time and never using it. So we're turning this around. This is an active system first. The active board inside is much lighter and cheaper to build than a passive reader. So for us, it's much easier to actually ship an active system to everyone and then have the passive mat with the reader inside if you need it. So we will have a passive extension in the future, not an active extension. You can see there's a second connector down here. This is where the passive mat goes, and I think I should have a cable here. So this will be the connector going to the passive mat, and you can already see it's going into two cables. That's because the redundancy issue, going into the two chains of internal elements. So the active loop will be possible to connect active loops up to 60 meters. It's been one of the big problems of our current active equipment, that long loops with high loop powers was not really, I would say, top-notch performance. So the new system has improved a lot. It depends on local regulations, to be honest, whether it's legal to do that or not. But you can use loops up to 60 meters with 100% loop power. And as I already said, you can connect up to 30 passive reader segments, giving you up to 23 meters of passive finish line width, start line width, whatever you want to do with it. Now let's talk about batteries.
That's
so
75 feet, by the way.
I hope that's enough even in the States. I don't know. What's the widest start line that you have here?
Mark Ray, you would probably know better. What's the widest start line you have?
Widest start, yeah, 30 meter, 16 even. But for cross-country skiing, we would go 30 meter.
Yeah, but not passive, right?
Yeah, with active.
Yeah.
For passive, what's your?
For passive, 16, so 2 8-meter face-to-face.
Yeah, well then you can, that's easy with one decoder now. Yeah.
And not doubling the decoder, so
You get
23 with one decoder.
basically, you can do the math. For a 60-meter start line, basically at the moment you need 4 decoders, 2 from both sides. That's what you would normally run with main and backup. Each of them, I'm calculating kilograms, weighing 12 kilograms. So that would be 48 kilograms of equipment.
Plus the announcer, that's double.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just 48 kilograms of these. In the future, you would just need 2 of those, which total to 8 kilograms. Okay, let's talk about batteries. So probably most of you have already seen it. There are 2 battery compartments down here. The reason for that is that we wanted to allow hot swappable batteries during the event, because sometimes you need more battery, and you need a battery inside the system and a battery that you are in the process of swapping. So you need a minimum of 2. But we wanted to go with lithium ion, of course, so we needed them both to be taken out. Actually, I took this system here personally through the Frankfurt security 2 days ago. I carried this as carried-on luggage. And they asked me to take the batteries out, and that's the requirement if you want to have this kind of capacity in airline take-on luggage. So you can take both out. Obviously, if you do that, the system will be off. There's no internal battery on top of those 2. Now, the interesting thing is, maybe you can slightly see it here, these batteries that we chose, actually not manufactured by us. They are a little bit adapted for us, but it's actually American brand batteries. They have a status indicator showing the status of every single battery at every given time. And maybe you can see them here. You can see it back there. The lids of the battery cases is transparent so that you can see the state of charge of the battery. Even if they are stacked like this, you can immediately see how full these batteries are, which has been a pain with the old system. I mean, going through 10 systems, checking if all batteries are charged on the old system is quite a tedious process. Now you can do it within 5 seconds. So how long does the battery last? We will get, with 2 batteries populated, 32 hours of active and 10 hours as a passive system running with 8 meters of mats connected. It depends on how long the passive mat is. We have a table for that if you're interested in how long it would work with 60 meters. It's not 10 hours, but then you could start swapping batteries if you really need that. But as an 8-meter passive system, you will have 10 hours of battery life. Now, we brought 2 of them because we wanted to show you the stackability. The nice thing is that you can, in the stacked position, get to the battery compartments and take the batteries out, put them in again. And you can also get to the, let's see, trying to do this here, to the connectors under the lid in the stacked position. Meaning that if I would want to charge them, let's say charge the lower one, I can do that without taking the stack apart, which is important if you have many of them and you want to have good logistics in your warehouse. You can just charge them like that. I can now also connect the PoE to the upper one. The system's still off. And you can see how the cable goes through this broom part here. It's held down by the lid. Same thing here. And now the battery is, probably won't be able to see it, but it is indicating that it's charging. And it's indicating how long it will take to charge. So this will now, with this PoE adapter, take 4 hours to fully charge the second battery. The first battery is already full. So I would like to give you a little demo. And for that, we have to switch out of the presentation mode. Now, let's see if that works. So I have a local version of our software running on my computer here. And I will now switch on, take off the PoE again, switch on the upper system. And one of the improvements, or one of the problems that people were telling us, is boot time. And boot time has been limited by the reader. I'll turn it on and then I'll tell you. So now the system boots. The problem with the boot time of the old system was that we were waiting for the reader. And we couldn't be sure that the reader would be operating before it had booted. And the Zebra guys had never optimized their software for shorter boot times because in a warehouse situation, this does not matter. But in our situation, it does matter a lot. To be honest, I didn't see when it was finished, but when the light came on, it was finished. So it took about 20 seconds to boot. It is now searching for GPS. Probably won't find one here. I'll press this button to have it finish searching for GPS. Oh, let's see. And you can already see the system popped up in my timing software. So how can this be? Actually, the system is running an access point, Wi-Fi, and my computer is connected to that. Let's see. So here you see there is a U40004, which is this ID here. My computer connected to that, and now I'm connected. For many small events, this is going to be the setup. Because if you can run on battery anyway, and you can rely on the battery, you don't want any cabling. And if you have Wi-Fi data communication between your computer and the box, you don't need anything else. 20 meters is the range of the Wi-Fi, the built-in Wi-Fi. So you can see up here, we have one battery with 100%, we have one battery with 63%. One battery would now last, you can't really see that here. Let's see if we can make, unfortunately that does not get bigger. So it says 17 hours and 10 hours, as you know what the battery life would be. So to show you some details on the screen here, I have a second tab here. Let's see if I refresh that. So what you can now see is what's displayed here on the screen. Probably most of you already know that from our old system. Basically the same thing. If you have a network connection to it, you can directly see what's on the screen. And actually here in the web interface, you also have the buttons. They're not labeled yet. They will be labeled at some point. You can press the buttons here and remotely control it if you want. So what you can see here is that this is the 10K Finnish main system. Same text as there was on the screen when it was off. And we have one battery with 17 hours left, 18 hours, and one battery with 11 hours left, which is currently discharged. So what I will now do, I will remove the battery that the system is running on right now. The system still runs and is now operating on the first battery. It will take about 30 seconds to estimate how long it will last on that one. It should hopefully come up with 18 hours again. Put that back in. Now, just to show this here, I will connect PoE again. And it should charge. So now the arrow moved up. The other battery does not charge right now because it's full already. And hopefully within 30 seconds, there should be the hours remaining to fully charge it. So now I will connect a loop to get rid of that loop error. Turn it around. See if that works. So you see it's running loop number 3, channel number 3, 68%. And currently it has one read, which is because I pressed the start button at the beginning, creating a marker. I can switch through 3 different screens. Next one would be this here, showing you a condensed version of what timing is doing, but also the Ethernet connection, Wi-Fi, and modem. And the last screen showing you statistics that many of you wished for the passings received. So I hope something happens here. So we have some passings coming in, and you can see now it's total 4, unique 4. Let's see what happens. Total 7, still unique 4. So that's what the screen looks like. To be honest, I'll invite you to play around with it. We have 2 systems here. Doesn't really make sense to go through the menu in this presentation. And also, I would like to remind you that this is still in development. So things on the user interface may change. The physical layouts of the buttons won't change anymore, but the user interface may change. So I would say this was basically all there is to say from a top-down perspective. Tomorrow there will be another presentation where we really will take one apart with a live camera. You can see what's inside and see that every single PCB in there is custom made. You will see some nice details like the battery heater or the humidity sensor and all this other fancy stuff that we have in there. But I think it's enough for this presentation. So I had a last slide, which might be important. So the question is, when will this be available and what does it cost? As an active system, we are planning to have it available mid this year. And the decoder as an active system will be priced quite similarly to our current system, because you may think, okay, this is expensive, but actually it's not. So what we are going to do is, I don't have pricing for the passive solution yet, but we will align our pricing for all the different currencies that we have to our existing pricing of the existing decoder. Will be slightly higher. We have to adjust for inflation, but it's not a completely different league. Yeah. So that was the presentation of the Ubidium timing system. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, how much time do we have left for questions?
Yeah, so we do have 30 minutes for questions. As Nikia said, we'll have a break after that question time. So we can, of course, always reach out to any of us during the break. And for those watching on YouTube, feel free to send us emails. So there's the one thing for those people that came to Boulder, you are the ones who can ask questions right away and you can get your hands on those systems. For everyone else, we will also have training and networking sessions throughout the world. So these ones are for you to get your hands on the systems. But yeah, also we have plenty of time now. And so now it's up to you, up to the audience to raise your questions, if there are any.
Are you?
Yeah, I can moderate it. Okay, Jeff, Jenna, up to you.
Yeah. Okay. So the question was button lock. I would say that does not really qualify as a question. Could you please phrase it as a question?
Will you have a button lock, and how easy will it be to walk somebody through it on the phone, get into controlling it?
Okay, that's two questions. So button lock, I think I know what you want. So interesting question here is, it doesn't have a lid, and we already talked about all the stuff concerning weather, but you may be concerned about people playing with it. This may be interesting to people. And yes, I can understand that, but to be honest, I have two answers for that question. The first is, I've been to quite a significant number of test events now with this system, and I intentionally placed it somewhere where spectators and everyone could go and watched what happened with not standing next to it. Okay? And people are interested, they look, but so far on none of these test events anyone dared to touch it. Okay? So that would be the first answer to it. Jenna is shaking her head, yeah? So yeah, wait. So the next answer is yes, there will be an option to lock it. The idea at the moment is that you will have some key combination that you have to press to unlock it. So you can tell your helpers, press 2 times down, 2 times up, or whatever, and then you can do something. And if you don't do that, the system won't react. Problem there is that still, if somebody wants to be a bad actor, they can just take the system away. And this was already possible with the old system. Or disconnect any cables. Now, the question to you would be, on how many events of any one of you have you ever had the issue that some random person disconnected your antennas? Okay, 3 or 4. Okay, so unfortunately, this is something we will not be able to fix. Yeah, but yeah, so the buttons will be lockable, and we probably will have something like a silent mode where it doesn't blink and beep and doesn't show something, so it's not really interesting. So what was the second question?
That was it. You covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Jenna, you had the question first.
I honestly you'd rather I do them later. I have a bunch, but I mean, I'm happy to answer them if people are interested. So, I guess the replacement parts, like the screen, I know you say it's really robust. I think I have employees that just break stuff
Mm-hmm.
to purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple other. Will we be able to replace? I know that it won't be a replaceable part. We'll ship them in cases, but will they be part replaceable in the field by us?
So the question was, will there be any replacement parts that can be replaced by the customer?
To be honest, it depends, I would say. In the past, we had mixed experiences with people, especially customers, replacing parts themselves.
I guess, there are different levels of timers.
Yeah, I know. That's why it depends. Yeah. So let me say this. Tomorrow you will see when Moritz takes it apart. Actually, Moritz takes great pride in how easy it is to take this thing apart, and also how easy it is to put it back together. If this glass breaks, you would probably want to replace the full upper half, because Sönke showed you the robot. That robot will be applying the glue holding that glass in the case. And you don't want to do that yourself. You don't want to peel off the rest of the old glass. So you will probably want to replace the upper half. This is something that can be done by somebody who's technically skilled. But I don't know if we will offer this as an option to anyone.
So I guess that, the next point is like you're putting all this effort to it. I think it's amazing. Don't get me wrong, but we're going to break stuff.
Yep.
We're going to figure out ways to break stuff you didn't think we could do.
Yep.
The life, so that's possible.
Yep.
I don't care whether it's a screen or the whole upper. Like if there's a program where we can buy those parts, and so it takes the hassle away from you and from us.
Yeah, but you have to consider one thing. This thing, you can take the batteries out, and it then only weighs 3 kilograms. So sending around the system will be a completely different story from the old system.
It's still shipping time.
Yeah, yeah.
Boulder is fast, but they're only so fast. They're still waiting for the parts. It's a huge different ballgame when it breaks on Sunday, and I need it on Sunday, or Saturday, or Tuesday, or Friday, whatever, to go to the next event.
Well, but then you would already need all the spare parts. I mean, I would recommend in that case to have a backup system. But yeah, I get what you want to say, but I don't want to promise here now that we will have a.
To like give you our wish list.
Yeah. What I can say, I don't know if anyone had ever had a problem getting spare parts from us. Typically, if you contact us and you want a part for the old decoder, I'm talking about displays, for example. It's not been a big issue, but we would have to discuss the case.
You want to go somewhere else and come back, or may keep going? Can you just go over the specs of the PoE? Like, is it PoE plus? Can it like the new PoE? What we're all running, honestly, if you're not, is Starlink, right? It's 48 full volts. Is that even an option? Like, what's the output of PoE?
I would need Moritz.
To repeat that question, so.
Yeah, so it has PoE out.
Yeah.
There's lots of different versions of
Yeah.
PoE from 12 to 48.
I wanted to repeat for those in the live stream, because I'm not sure if they got it. So the question was, what's the technical specifications of especially the PoE out? Is it PoE plus, PoE plus plus? What's the voltage? So there we go. I guess Moritz may also talk about that tomorrow, but this is the technical specifications should be shown now. But Nikias, you can also take over.
Yeah, that's what the technical specification of the PoE out is. You just said Starlink. I have no idea what the power supply requirements for Starlink is, but I guess it's probably higher. Yeah. Yeah, so the lower output power is when the system has power itself. And the low power PoE out, the 15.4 volts, is coming from the battery of the system. So this should be enough for, what, as I was saying, your typical Ubiquiti nanostation setup.
I would say that talking about the technical details, really going so much into detail, we can do either in the breaks with you or for everyone else tomorrow in that dedicated session with Moritz. I would just go ahead with maybe more easier questions. I mean, not that we can't answer them, not that much into detail, into technical details. If you're fine with it, Jenna. Yeah. There was one question first. Sorry.
A couple, but they all kind of go together. So, if I'm understanding the math that you first showed, that's the passive mode.
Yep.
And there will be a passive system.
Yep.
In our events, we do a lot of split times.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it possible to use a combination of the new box and an old box and a track box
Yep.
throughout?
Yeah, so the question was, is it possible to combine the existing product portfolio with the new system?
Yes, so in general, this system is compatible to our existing transponders. So you can use a mixed population of old and new systems. What you will not be able to do is connect an old antenna mat to the new system, because there is no reader inside. Yeah, that's clear. Maybe another thing, combining things. What will be possible, actually maybe somebody would raise the question, but I will now raise it myself. Can you do active and passive at the same time? And yes, you can. Because we have these two connectors here. So you will be able to have an active loop connected and a passive mat connected at the same time, and you will be able to do, for example, for elite participants, have the active transponders, or the rest having the passive. And actually, our new timing mat will even provide a guide for the loop. So it can stay in the timing mat.
Actually, you also saw on the screen.
There seem to be only a few people appreciating that. Yep.
What about heat? You know, for a lot of us in the southern states, I mean,
Yep.
just the faceplate heating up
Yep.
is a major problem right now.
Yep.
So the question was,
sorry.
what's about the heat? So if you're living somewhere in the desert or in whenever it gets too hot, will it cause any trouble?
Yeah, so this has been a major concern in our design phase because it's something we're not happy with the old decoder. It's one of the reasons for the water damage is actually because, you know, the sticker in the lid says that you should open it when the sun is shining. And sometimes the sun is shining and later on it rains. Can happen. So we spent quite some time looking at heat management. So the interesting thing here is that actually there is nothing in this thing that generates heat anymore if it's just running as a timing system, because there is no UHF RFID reader, which was the primary source of heat in the system. This is now in the mat, distributed in the mats. You could ask the question, okay, what about the mats? Yeah. But still, we have a fan in the system now. Now you would ask, okay, how does the air get out in and out? It gets in and out. Oh, wait, I'll go back to the slide where you can see the open system. Just a second. So, yeah, can't really see it, but here on the left and right, you see two metal plates next to the connectors. Actually, maybe I'll open this up again here. You see this metal plate here. Let's see. Just a second. So there's a metal plate here, and there's another metal plate here on the other side. You see that? Actually, if you look closely, the broom does not really touch the lid here. So there are gaps below here. And the number one reason why this thing could heat up is because you connect it to mains power supply, and the power supply inside is our largest heat source. And if you look closely, you could come up later, and we will discuss this tomorrow. Actually, in the lid, there is this plastic piece here, and there's one down here. And if you connect the AC connector, it blocks the two halves of the lid, so that air can go in here, be sucked in by, sucked in by the fan, and pushed out of here and go down here again. So this way, we made it waterproof, but still there's some ventilation. And actually, we at Moritz did some tests. You know, we have a artificial sun in the office with I don't know how many 100 watts of light and going onto this and trying to heat it up. And one thing that can happen is that power supply ratings may be derated by the system if it gets too hot. It won't charge as fast. But we think that we are set up much better than with the old system.
Again, I live on a coastal area. We do a lot of things on beaches, salt, sand, intrusion into a thing that you can't cover, like blowing sand, getting inside to a...
I would say not through the front.
Okay.
If you open the lid and throw sand in there, I can't help you. on the side here, there is actually a filter. So where it's sucking in the air, there is a filter which can be replaced by you if you want. There is a screw that you have to take out. You can replace it. It's like the filter you have in the back of your vacuum cleaner. So dust doesn't get in the system. But obviously, you can break it if you want to.
I don't want to.
Yeah, but
Going back to it, my stack.
Yeah, there was some other questions before Jenna. I think I forgot your name. Yeah.
Well, I had a question just about the mat. In some of the road races that we've done in the past, whether they be cars that drive over or during the prep, I mean, we've had like a logger truck drive over several of our mats. And,
So
yeah. So the question is that's a good start. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, the question was, will it be durable enough to let cars and trucks drive over it? I mean, with the current mat, did you ever experience any issues with that?
Well, I mean, we get the beep of the air beep if something goes over that is too heavy, but it never affects our.
yeah, I mean that's the design goal. Yeah. You are touching an interesting problem because, I mean, we have significant electronics in here. Actually, I have a screwdriver to open it up if you're interested. You can have a closer look. There are electronics in here, and there definitely is a risk of this thing failing. And I would say the risk is higher than with the old solution, because in the old solution, the antenna, there was not really something to fail in the antenna. But it's been on our to-do list for the last 3 years.
Will there be a warranty with any of that, or are you going to assure that those will be good for X amount of years? Or?
I would say we will have our standard warranty times, which apply for this product. I think what's more important is that we will go on lots of test events with this, and I'm quite sure that we will have some trucks going over it. I mean, on the last mat, maybe you know a YouTube video where we have this heavy crane. It's like an 80 tons crane going back and forth, and we will do something similar.
I mean, could you speak on the corrosion potential
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, the question was, is there any corrosion potential, or just in general? Yeah. What about corrosion? And,
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have one of the connectors with me which go into this here, but they are coming from outdoor lighting installation. They have a seal, so no water gets into the connector. Also, the connector itself is sealed. The connector on the inside here and the antenna will be potted, so no water gets in here. Obviously, this thing must be submergible. That's clear. Also, maybe there's one detail that I skipped. If you look closely, actually the design of the mat has drastically changed. The old mat has a base structure where you have a top element going into that. Now we have a base structure which is covered by the top element, which we hope will lead to a situation where you have much less problems with water getting to the antenna. But even, I understand. As I said, this thing must be submergible. That's the design goal.
The park wire is also in the connector that keeps it from getting wet?
That's more my question. Is that
so that part one goes into a little connector that closes it off?
No, there is there is like a little cap which is in there, which keeps your not used connectors safe. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Jenna, next question.
So this was, you went over connecting, the decoder becomes an access point or a client, the computer connects to the decoder. That only gives us a primary, right? It doesn't give us a second. How would you, if the computer can only have one Wi-Fi connection going out, then the other one would be connected maybe to the first decoder, you can daisy chain them, and we'll give it internet back to the computer so we can then connect to our online.
Yeah, so yeah, if I got you right, the question is, can I use the Ubidium as an access point for my internet on my laptop as well?
To be honest, it's not decided yet. Technically, no problem. I mean, we run a Linux system on there, and we could switch that through. It's not a problem to watch YouTube over the system. Also, the data connection, I mean, that's one of the limitations that we had in the old decoder, that the data connection between the modem and the computer was actually quite slow. That was one of the reasons why we never shared the internet connection of the decoder to the outside world. With this one here, we can have full speed 4G data. To be honest, we have not decided yet if we really want to do that, because it leads to some problems, especially considering low data volume SIM cards.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Low data volume SIM cards. Because you can accidentally generate lots of data volume, and until you know it, it's already quite expensive. So we have to see how we do that. I understand that this is something which would be very handy. To be honest, the access point mode, I personally believe, will be something that will be used by small clubs, rental users a lot. With one system, yeah. I think that many of you guys, especially bigger timers, will actually run their Wi-Fi with their access point and have this just connect to that automatically. So once you turn it on, it connects to your Wi-Fi that you have anyway, and you're done. Now, to be honest, that's what I think you're going to do.
You had another question?
Super simple. I think you implied it, but I just was wondering if spare batteries are going to be available to purchase.
Yes, that's a good question, actually. The system, when we sell it as an active system, will come with one battery. And you, if you want 2 batteries, will have to order a second one, which is because as an active system, on one battery, this thing still lasts 16 hours, which may be enough for many. But you will be able to buy additional batteries. Actually, as I said, this battery is not manufactured by us. There are actually 2 suppliers, one here in the US and there's one in Europe too, for this form factor of battery. And we won't force you to buy the battery from us. You can buy it from us, but you can also buy it directly from them.
Do you have a price point?
I think at the moment the price point will be somewhere around $150 per battery, which may sound expensive, but given the current lithium battery prices, I would say it's reasonable for what you get, especially because the estimation of how long the battery will last is based on what the battery is telling us. So maybe go back to this here. You see up here we have this 20 hours and 13 hours. And one of the major design goals of this was that you can trust those numbers, because that's a major pain point on our whole system, that you never know how long this thing is going to last. So we think that we will be much better with this, and these numbers up there are taking into consideration the actual current consumption in the current state, and they're taking the battery state into account, so temperature and wear and tear of the battery. So an older battery will show a lower number.
Yeah, so the question was about trade-ins of old equipment and get some new equipment in return.
So I see this as a good sign because it means you're interested in it. To be honest, it's not decided yet. We have already discussed internally. The major problem is, what are we going to do with all this old stuff? Maybe you find somebody else you can sell it to. That would be... But yeah, we'll see. Maybe I don't want to promise something.
So as it's not yet in the shop, before it will be in the shop, we will let you know. By then it will be decided. Yeah, go ahead. Chuck.
If you have that screen running, I'm going to ask, can you quickly demonstrate the screen backlight?
What you mean here? Press.
The question was on the screen backlight.
Yeah, but actually this is not the I mean, I go into display brightness.
You can adjust that. Because on bright light days, reading status and commands is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, but actually that's an important factor about this display here, is that it's a transreflective display. I mean, you may ask, this still looks like old technology. I mean, other timing systems have, LCD color displays. It's actually interesting because I've missed that in my presentation earlier.
Something for me to tell tomorrow.
Okay, sorry. But I will tell you some specs. So the interesting part about this is a custom-made display. This display is specifically made for us, for our requirements. And it is perfectly readable in direct sunlight. You don't rely on the backlighting. You don't need that, because it's a transreflective display, so the sun will help you to read it better. But the other very important thing, why is this technology still an LCD, technology, is because of the temperature range. We don't think that you will ever have a timing event anywhere in the world, even penguin races in Antarctica, where you won't be able to read this display.
Mark, up to you.
I guess the loop box, you can put an external antenna on this to extend the range, and all the normal loop boxes will talk to this box.
Yep.
I noticed too, you have it on channel 3, usually on an active extension, they're normally defaulted to channel 2, loop 1.
Depends on how you use them, yeah. But yeah, so actually, sorry.
Yeah, you can also repeat the question. The question was on whether you can still connect with loop boxes and also connect an external antenna to it to increase the distance between the timing system, between the Ubidium and the loop boxes.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, you can use loop boxes with it. And to be honest, I really like this setup here, because we have quite a few people using the active extension just as a receiver for loop boxes, not even attaching a loop to that. And with this here, as it, you can stand it basically. This thing here can be placed like this. It can be placed like this. It can also be placed like this. It's actually quite handy to put it like that. And putting it on your desk or your timing tabletop bench, whatever you have, like this, having this antenna stick up, will, I guess, for people who use loop boxes only, will be quite common. It does not really use a lot of space. Even if you have a normal table, you can still place a laptop in front of it. Completely different to the old system there.
Will I also be able to connect an active extension to Ubidium?
Okay. Yeah, so some of you may ask, will I be able to connect an active extension? So there are some sports, especially skiing, downhill skiing, where you don't want to put this box next to the track because it's just not allowed, because it's too big. Yeah. So there are some applications where you still want the active extension to be close to the track, where the active extension is actually something good. And that's why we decided that you will be able to connect the active extension to this connector where you can normally connect the passive mat. And you will it will even be possible, there are some niche applications where this is necessary, to have both running at the same time. So you can have the internal active system running at the same time as the external active system connected to that connector. There will be a new cable, so existing active extensions will be able to be running on this connector here. Yep. Wait for my presentation tomorrow and see why this will be important.
Mark Courtney first.
When refiguring your mat setups, is a mallet necessary to close up your mat and seal like the other?
Sorry?
Is it necessary to use a mallet to close up your mat?
Now I got the question. Do you want to repeat it or?
Yeah, okay. So the question was, do you still need a mallet to hammer down the top cover in your passive mat?
Yeah, so here you see that the connector between the bottom and upper half has completely changed. And one of the design goals was that we can manufacture those antenna mats in the daytime. Because at the moment, they are only manufactured at night. Because hammering them together is so loud that you can hear it in the whole building. So yes, you will be able to put them together without any tool. That's what we're aiming for.
Two more questions for now, then we will have the break, but you can of course ask us and we'll have another presentation tomorrow. So it was Mark first, Aaron, sorry.
So
So I have a question. What if I have a timer who gets everything wrong and wants to set up the Ubidium system so that the cover part is facing up towards the sky? What if...
You already know the answer. That's why you're asking it. So the question, I don't.
Yeah,
I will just show. So I have to do one thing here. I have to get all the stuff off the desk to show what he is asking. So I would say that was not a true question. That was something he wanted me to show you something.
How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah. So I mean, I said this thing is waterproof. There's one thing that you should not do. You should not put it somewhere with this broom part here facing the sky, because now if it rains, water will get in there. And I said, you can put it on a bench like this, and you can put it on a bench like that, and you can put it on a bench like that. The only way you cannot put it is that way, because the bumpers are round, so you cannot put it somewhere in the wrong way. Yeah.
You can always tape it in that direction that you need.
Yeah, you can always tape it in any direction. Yeah, that's
Okay, final question, Aaron.
Can you activate track ping and receive track pings?
Okay, the question was, can you activate track pings on that one?
That's something for tomorrow. Yeah.
So
please, if you're interested in active transponders and track pings and all this stuff, attend the presentation tomorrow.
Yeah, for all those watching us live on YouTube, you will know the answer soon, but for all of us here right now in Boulder, join us tomorrow in the afternoon and you will know more about it. But I think that makes a very good end. Thanks, Nikias. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
A very, very big thank you to the whole development team, actually everyone being involved in this whole project. So actually the whole company somehow was involved in it and will still be involved with it. And it will be the system that we will also support in the next years, and it will hopefully lead us through the 20s of this century. A big thank you to more than 150 viewers on YouTube. For all you, I said it before already, you can join our training sessions and networking sessions throughout the world, actually throughout the different continents. We will show the dates and the locations for them, and you can also visit our website. We'll have a QR code, so you can find out more information about that on our website. For all of us you here in Boulder, we will somehow make sure that you will also get that QR code and can access our website. Maybe we will just put it on the screen. And thanks again for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all of you for the questions as well. And now enjoy the break and get some food in the back of the room and bombard us with questions. Thanks.